All right, I wanted to welcome Juanita Broaddrick here today, and I want to thank you for making time to talk to me today.
Well, thanks for asking, Blair.
So maybe I just wanted to start out by asking, what are you up to today, and what's your life like today? I mean, it's been a while, I think, since people have heard.
Yeah, my life today is that I'm retired. I sold my nursing homes back in 2008. I play a lot of tennis. I go out with my friends, and I do a lot of yard work.
Yes, I saw the picture earlier today. So,
Yeah.
well, that's not too bad. That's not too bad at all. So, I guess, you've got quite a story, and I don't know that if everybody that's going to be listening is actually going to know it. So I think it's important that we dig into it a little bit so people can understand. And we're going to be talking a little bit about the Clintons and what they put you through and things like that. So maybe we'll start off by asking, how did you meet Bill Clinton?
I hadn't met him personally until he came to Van Buren, but I had heard about him and I had seen his, excuse me, his ads on TV and everything about running. He was the Attorney General running for governor of Arkansas. So I volunteered for his campaign, and when he was coming through the area, visiting area businesses, he visited my nursing home, and that's when I personally met him. He came around, and he noticed that I had on the volunteer Clinton button, and he began to ask me questions about it, and if I was volunteering, and I told him yes, I was. And I also began to tell him about my ideas for, proper reimbursement for nursing homes versus good care. And he seemed very interested in that. So I was really happy.
Okay. And so were you actually working for the campaign, or were you just politically motivated due to the...
No, I was actually working in the campaign. Okay. My van for the nursing home had yard signs and stickers and all of that. I had it loaded up in the back, and I was in the process of helping to put out yard signs and banners and things.
Okay. So without getting into, any really big details here, can you kind of briefly explain the circumstances that led to you being alone with Bill Clinton? How did you end up alone with him?
Okay, when I was talking to him about what my views were about the nursing home reimbursement, he said, when you're in Little Rock again, I go down several times a year. I used to go down several times a year for nursing home conventions and nurses meetings. And he said, when you're down there, call my campaign office and we'll get together and we'll talk about these things more in detail. So about 2 or 3 weeks later, my nurse and I did have a meeting in Little Rock. We went down and we called his campaign office, and they said he wasn't there, but that I was to call his apartment in Little Rock, so which I did. And he answered the phone, and I told him I was in Little Rock. When could I meet him at his office so we could talk about nursing homes? And he said, well, why don't we just meet in the Camelot Coffee Shop? And I said, well, I have a meeting this morning, but I can meet you there and then go on to the meeting. And so he said, okay, we'll meet down there. Well, I told my nurse to go on to the meeting, and I waited around for him to call to say he was down there. And he did call a little bit later and said that the Camelot Coffee Shop was full of people and there were reporters down there. Could we meet in my room? And it made me a little apprehensive, but I said, yes, we can meet in the room. So I ordered coffee to the room. And he came to the room, and that's when things got out of hand. Then I don't know what else you want me to tell you right at this moment.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's obviously a very difficult subject.
Yeah.
I guess, this is tough to say delicately, but we see the media out today, and they are protecting the Clintons, and they're sort of, not using the term rape. And I think that's the word that we want to use here, right? Like, you felt that you were raped by Bill Clinton. Would that be appropriate?
Yes, I said that in the Dateline interview, and then I just steered clear from it for a long time. And to actually use the word was really hard. I usually, over the years after the rape, I would say sexual assault when I was talking with my friends. But that's correct. When Trump used it on Hannity that night, it's hard to hear, but it's the correct terminology.
Yeah, I mean, it was hard for me even to say, and obviously I didn't go through it.
I know.
So I appreciate you. I appreciate you being very forward with us here. Are you comfortable sharing with us what happened after? Like, what did he say to you, and how did things end? Like, how did he leave the room and stuff?
I was still in a state of shock. I was crying. My lip was bleeding. My lip was painful. And he didn't say anything, except he just gathered himself and walked to the door and put on his sunglasses and told me that I better get some ice on that. That was it. It was like it was an everyday occurrence.
Wow. Chilling.
Yeah.
That's just hard.
I know.
Yeah.
I know. And when my nurse came to the room, not my nurse that takes care of me, but my employee,
right.
When I didn't show up to the meeting, she came back to the room and found me in this condition. And I think she's explained it several times in the media, how she found me.
Exactly. Yeah.
And she immediately got ice for my mouth.
Yeah.
And I couldn't do anything. I was just a blubbering idiot. And so she packed up all of our things and we left and came home.
Wow, it's very, very traumatizing. Very, very sorry you had to experience something like that. I guess it probably really never goes away.
It doesn't, yeah.
And speaking of that, like, it's being revisited today, obviously, right? I mean, we're talking about today, but I mean, you're featured in at least one Trump ad that I know of. Did the campaign contact you about them? Did they ask permission or anything?
No, not at all. I was very shocked. I have a good friend. Oh gosh, I forget his name now, and he's such a good friend. But he emailed me and he said, "Did you know that you're in the Trump campaign?" I think it went out on Instagram to begin with, so he sent me the link so I could hear it. And I was just shocked. I was just, to hear my voice at the most horrible time of that Dateline interview that I just almost wanted to cry again. I was shocked. I really was, that they had not contacted me and had not said, just a little forewarning, we're going to do this, or do you mind if we do this? I had nothing.
Right. Yeah, I would have assumed that somebody would have at least reached out to you and give you some kind of a warning. So basically, it aired, and you were told after it aired. So I mean, it's.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Didn't even know.
Well, let's change topics just a little bit here. Have you been following this particular election closely? Have you paid attention?
Yes, mainly to see that if Hillary gets indicted. That's my main goal in watching it and everything. Is just to hope and keep my fingers crossed that something will happen, that she'll be found out.
Yeah, you and me both on that one. That's for sure. Well, have you? I mean, obviously you're not going to vote for Hillary. So
no.
Are you going to vote for Trump, or are you going to stay out of it?
Blair, I'm going to vote for Trump, but it's a vote against Hillary.
Right. Makes sense.
Yeah. I haven't, and I will vote for him. I'll do anything I can to try to stop her.
I mean, I think I could probably answer this, but how does it make you feel to see Hillary Clinton being basically named the Democrat nominee today?
Well, it hurts. It's an absolute disgusting event to occur, that she, going on women's rights and everything, could even begin to become the Democratic nominee for president.
Yeah, and I want to touch on this because I think this is also important for people to hear. So you met Hillary one time, is that correct?
Yes, just once, about 3 weeks after the assault. The rape. And
do you mind, I know you've already explained this in another interview, but do you mind explaining one more time just how that went down?
Oh, not at all. I don't mind at all. I had sort of distance myself from the campaign, and had about 2 or 3 checks for the campaign and a list of people who were still going to donate to his gubernatorial campaign. So I had 2 friends go with me, and we went up to Dr. Criswell's home. That's where it was held. And to give this to them, we got there about 15 minutes before it started. And I was going to give him this information, and then we were just going to leave. And I'd already told one of them earlier that I wasn't going to be in the campaign anymore. I wasn't going to volunteer. And before we could get out, the driver who had driven them from the airport, his name was Chuck Watts. He was a local pharmacist. He wasn't aware that the rape had occurred. He didn't know how I felt or anything, but he came over to me very happily and said that the topic of the conversation all the way from the airport with the Clintons was about me. And that made me very apprehensive. Well, before he could turn and go away, I see someone in the kitchen with Bill and Hillary had just walked through the back entrance of the kitchen. And someone is pointing to me, and she comes directly over to me, and he goes the other way. And she starts profusely thanking me for all that I was doing in the campaign and how much they appreciated it. And I was just going to turn and walk away. I didn't even want to talk to this woman. And she grabs a hold of my hand and my arm. And her smile fades. She has a very stern look on her face and a very gruff voice. And she says, "Do you understand everything you do?" And that just made cold chills run up me. It frightened me. And I jerked my hand from hers, and I told my friends, "Let's go." And we left.
So you were obviously intimidated or scared at that point.
I was scared. These were powerful people in Arkansas.
Right.
You know, I was still under the shock that I had been raped by the Attorney General of the state of Arkansas, and then here comes his wife over to me to tell me to be quiet. Yes. Yeah. And he conveniently, he made a dart the other direction. Right. I mean, it was as though she had told him, "I'm going to handle this. You go away."
And I think some of us have seen Hillary's gruff voice and some of her anger on TV when she snaps. So I think we get an idea of how mean she can actually be. So. Oh my! Yeah. I can still see her that night when I see her on television. Yeah, I mean, I wasn't there, but I mean, I've seen moments of her where you can see, who she really is. So. Right, and Blair, that was long before she had anybody to do her dirty work for her. She was doing it herself. Right. Now, what would you say to women out there that don't know Bill's history and who are still planning on voting for her? Like, what would you say to a woman if you were face to face with her and she said, I want to vote for Hillary? Like, how would you? I would say, my gosh, do your research. Know what these people are, what they have done to the women that he abused. Know what she has done in all of her corruptness. I just would hope that they wouldn't do it just on listening to her talk, that they would investigate and read and listen to reports about her. Right. Now, were you ever given an apology in any form or fashion at any time? Yes. Was there ever a card sent from them, anything? No, but when my nursing home was nominated for the top 5 in the state of Arkansas, and I got a congratulatory letter from the state. Well, he signed it, Bill, and then across the bottom, he just wrote, "I admire you very much." And I thought, yeah, I guess so, for keeping quiet. Right. And that was the only thing that I got written-wise. Otherwise, in 1991, when I was down at a nursing home meeting, someone called me out of the room, and I had 2 of my employees with me there at the time. And we thought it might be an emergency from home, so they went out with me. And the gentleman that called me out pointed me down around the corner. And so I walked down that way.
And just as I got around the corner, there stood Bill Clinton. He comes right to me and says all these things about how sorry he was for what he did to me, that something like he was a changed man, he was a family man, and he wasn't that person anymore. And he just kept saying these things, and I'm standing there thinking, you're standing here in front of all these people apologizing to me. Of course, they couldn't hear. He got very close to me.
Right.
And I thought, I couldn't believe it. And I told him to go to hell, and I walked off.
See, I've never heard that. I mean, it may be out there, but I wasn't aware that he actually saw you in person and apologized. Now, did you sense any sincerity from him at all when he apologized, or just you?
It seemed sincere, Blair. It seemed so sincere, and I walked back to the girls, and by that time, I was crying just to be that close to him again. It just disgusted me. And so I walked back to them, and I was tearing up, and they said, "What's wrong?" And I said, "He just apologized for raping me." And I just couldn't believe it. And we kept thinking, is he repentant? Does he really mean this? Well, of course he didn't, because the next week he announced that he was running for president.
Right.
He would just cover. He found out, I guess, that I was in Little Rock, and thought he would cover that one base.
Right. So he can try to, make you feel better, keep you quiet when he makes the announcement, and
yeah.
So more calculated Clinton.
Bull crap. I'm sorry. That's exactly what it is.
Well, I mean, you got to give him credit for one thing. He's a very polarizing man. He's fooled a lot of people, and Hillary's been able to ride his coattails because she wouldn't have been able to pull it off. So, I mean...
I know that. But, there's one thing he did. By calling me out of that room and apologizing to me, he really took the blame off of me. I no longer blame myself for allowing him to come to the room. So he did me a favor, even though he was doing it facetiously. He did me a favor because I was then able to put the blame where it belonged.
So did that bring you some closure then on the issue? Or
yes.
So you
yes.
say you have some pretty good closure on it today then? Just
yes.
a little bit reopened with the events.
Yeah, even though he didn't mean it,
right.
He knew that that it was all his fault.
Yeah, he wasn't sorry, but he was admitting to it. Is kind of what you got out of it, eh?
Right.
As an admission, I did this to you. Maybe not really sorry, but this happened. So
yeah.
Something that bothers me that I see is like. I don't know if you know who Tom Lamas is. You probably don't. He's a reporter for ABC.
Yes.
And he made a claim about you and discredited you, and said that the rape had been discredited. And I tweeted at him. I wasn't very happy he said it, and told him that it never has been discredited, and I think a lot of other people did too. I also asked him if he wanted to comment on it because I mentioned I would be talking to you, and of course he didn't respond to that. What do you think of these reporters that say that, something like that, Well,
he was just following Andrea Mitchell's lead. The day that I tweeted out that tweet on January the 6th,
mm-hmm.
that I really didn't know what I was doing, Blair. I just was so angry with her coming out on Twitter saying all victims of sexual abuse should come forward. And I just thought, I've got to do something. I've got to learn how to use Twitter, and I've got to do something. Right. And so that evening, Andrea Mitchell called me. It must have been around 4 or so after in the afternoon, after I tweeted that, and she was one of maybe 50 or 60 reporters that had called that day because it caused such a storm on Twitter. And when she called me, she wanted to know about my confrontation with Hillary. And the whole way through this, me trying to explain to her what happened, she kept saying, well, how do you know that's what she meant? And all of these things. But she went ahead and recorded the conversation. They wanted me to go live in Fort Smith at the NBC affiliate, but I told her no, I wouldn't do that. So she recorded it for the 6 o'clock news. And then later she called back, just maybe 20 minutes later, and said that they had decided not to run it, that they were that there was nothing new to report.
Right, liberal bias.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, it must have just been just a terrible experience, and I really appreciate you talking to me today about it today, and hopefully we can get this message out in front of some more people who can hear this story, and even if we can stop a few people from voting for her, I hope it has an effect. And again, I just really want to thank you so much for your
Well,
time.
Blair, I appreciate, and I appreciate so much you calling.
Great. Well, I wish you the best of luck. Vote Trump. Let's get him elected,
Yes.
and pray for an indictment any day now. Let's hope that FBI.
Oh, I hope so. Yeah, I sure hope so.
Well, thank you, and I'm sure I will talk to you again on Twitter.
Okay, thanks, Blair.
Thank you. Bye now.
Bye.